So there's a problem with primitive blocks in this update for Season 4 of Halo Infinite. So if you go into the Force menu and you open up a primitive block, you might notice right off the bat when you spawn it in that it says the size is 3.98 by 3.98 by 4. Now you might be thinking, you probably wouldn't be thinking this unless you really pay attention to the sizes like I do, but you might remember that, this block is supposed to be 4 by 4 by 4, not 3.98 by 3.98 by 4. And the reason for this is that the primitive blocks have uh, basically like their scaling according to what size it says they are has been uh, is off now for some reason. So basically, whatever size that you set the x and y coordinates, the x and y coordinates of the size to be, will cause the block to be larger than the actual x and y that you put down. The z size seems to be still fine for some reason, but the x and y has been slightly messed up. So to prove this, um, let's just take this block and make it 16 by 16 by 16. This is 16 by 16 by 16 cube. And then we're going to take like any other block because it seems like it's just a primitive block that's been messed up like this. So let's just take a Forerunner block, for instance, and also make it 16 by 16 by 16. So now let's compare their heights first of all. So we're going to magnetize them both at the same bottom point. The heights seem to be about the same. So like I said, the height doesn't seem to be an issue. But when you try to compare their x size, their x dimension, or their y dimension, they're going to be slightly off. So if we magnetize it there, you can see that the primitive block is slightly larger in the x direction. This might not seem noticeable, but as we make the blocks larger, you'll see how much of an impact this can make. And if you're someone who really likes exact sizes when they're forging things, like me, then this is going to be a very annoying issue for you. And if we compare their y dimensions here, you can see that the y size is also slightly larger for the primitive block. So the reason why I even noticed this at all was on one of my maps I had a lot of primitive blocks that were size 64 by 64 by 4. And when I loaded into the map after Season 4 came out, I noticed that the size is now 63.75 by 63.75 by 4. So I automatically thought that like, wait, did it shrink all of my blocks? But I saw that no, the blocks are all the same size, but the size it says they are is now smaller. Their x and y dimensions that it lists are smaller, and it's lying about the size. This is not a 63.75 by 63.75 square. This is a 64 by 64 square if you compare it to any other dimension of any other block in the game. At least as far as I'm aware. So far, I've noticed that the Forerunner block and UNSC block, the sizes are still normal. It's this primitive block that's been messed up. So I did the math out a little bit, and I saw that everything seems to have increased in size by like a factor of 256 over 255. So for instance, I have my primitive block right here. It's size 16 by 256 by 4, and if I spawn in a Forerunner block, and I also make it 16 by 256 by 4. We're really just looking at comparing the y dimensions this time. And you can see that when I magnetize them both the same way, they're both supposed to be 256 long in the y direction. However, this primitive block is clearly longer by 1 unit. Which again, that's why I was saying the larger scale the larger your maps are, the larger you scale this up, the more that this is going to start, throwing things off. And I like everything to have exact coordinates on my maps and have exact sizes. So if I didn't catch this early on, I would definitely start going insane from these size differences. But you can see that if I reduce this size to 255, what the game says is 255, but it's not in fact 255. It's 256. It's lying. Then they become the exact same size. So just be aware of that. And if you want to if you want to adjust this on your maps to, get the actual size of the primitive block. So let's say you want to make a block that's, you know, 200 units long. You need to the size that you need to input in for this. So let's say like I have a block that's 200 long here. I want a primitive block that is 200 long. So what you need to do is you need to do 200 um, times 255 over 256. So basically, whatever length you want times 255 divided by 256. So that way, the number that you put in is actually smaller than the length that you wanted. So if I do 200 times 255 divided by 256, you get 6,375 over 32, which is about 199.21875. I mean, it's exactly that. The problem is, though, that this game only recognizes up to 2 decimal points. So unless you're using, like, numbers that are more easily divisible by 256, your primitive blocks are going to be slightly off. Like, there's no way I can get this to be exactly 199.21875. The best I could do is 199.22. So I mean, that'll be off by like a fraction of a unit, which could still add up over time, but at least it will be relatively the same size. So just be aware of that, and 343 will probably fix this in about 3 years, so get used to it. Maybe don't use primitive blocks in your map, or if you're just some kind of weird anarchist who doesn't care about size on their maps and all your maps are super ugly with blocks of just random sizes, then you can go ahead, you Philistine. But I just wanted to make this video for people who care about making their maps look nice with exact coordinates.